Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today we are going to be working on the Drac Pack Hip Bag from K.Azcona Designs. I'm going to be leaving a link for this pattern down in the description below, because although I will be showing you how to sew it, I will not be showing you the pattern pieces or giving you the measurements, so you will need to purchase the pattern if you want to sew this bag. The first thing I want to do is talk to you about the pattern just a little bit. The first thing you need to know is that this pattern can be bought individually or as a bundle. If you buy the bundle, you'll also get the mini as well. This mini pattern is designed to be used as a wristlet. Now, in the main pattern, she will have a D-ring, instructions on how to install that. I just added my wristlet to my zipper pull here, but she does have the instructions how to do the D-ring. The first thing we want to do is talk about the similarities and the differences between the mini and the hip bag. So this wristlet and the hip bag both have the same unique shape. They also both have a lined front zipper pocket. They both also have the zipper top opening and are both fully lined. The differences: the hip bag will have a slip pocket on the back, and it will have credit card slots inside. I will show you how to do those, but I will not be showing you how to make the mini wristlet today. The first thing you will need to do is you will need to buy the pattern. When you buy the pattern, you will need to print out page 3, which is going to be your cut list, and also pages 36 through 47, which will be your pattern pieces. Once you print out your pattern pieces, there will be a few that you will have to tape together using the boxes as indicators as to which pieces to tape together. After you get everything taped together, you will have a total of 7 pieces that you will cut out. The trickiest part about this pattern is the fact that with that unique shape, there will be some pattern pieces that need to be mirrored. So we're going to go a little bit slower over the cutting list and go over each piece so that we kind of have a better understanding of it. Just as a side note, I try to be very accurate in my videos, but follow along with your pattern. If there is any discrepancies, the pattern is always right. I am not. So if I make a mistake, I will try to catch it and correct it, but always go with your pattern first. Okay, so let's talk about our pattern pieces. With this cut list, we can see that we have the name and a corresponding letter for each pattern piece. We also have which ones will be using the outer fabric, the lining fabric, woven interfacing, or the fusible fleece, which is our stabilizer. When we're talking about our outer fabric, we have a couple options. You can use cork or vinyl. You can use cotton canvas or cotton woven. If you're using a vinyl or a cork material, unless you have a stretch that you want to get rid of, you won't need to use your woven interfacing there. So let's look at my pattern pieces and kind of talk about how we cut them out and the mirroring part of it. So for let's do it this way. I have mine kind of separated here in your front and your back. Looking right away, you can see that your front and your back are mirrored. When we cut out our pattern panel piece A, we're going to have one exterior that is not mirrored. That just means, let me flip these up so you can see a little bit better. This exterior piece, we have our fabric or our material right side up, and if it's directional, the direction orientated in the proper way. Then we put down our pattern piece directly on top of it with it right side up, and you'll be able to read the words the right way, so everything is orientated the same way. This is how you cut one of your exterior A main panel pieces. To cut out your second exterior piece, you're going to come over here and you would flip over your pattern piece. You can see your material is still right side up and orientated the right way, but your pattern is now face down. That is what it is being considered as being mirrored. So one exterior right way, one exterior mirrored. For your other panel piece, it will be your lining. Your lining will also need to be mirrored as well. All three of my pieces get the woven interfacing, even though I'm using a cotton canvas, but they still get some interfacing on them. Okay, so that is for A. So when we go to B, that is going to be our credit card slot pieces. So B is credit card, the left, credit card panel left. And then C will be our credit card panel right. Sorry, let's put it this way so you can see a little bit better. You can see how these are not mirrored. The pattern pieces will go directly on your fabric, right side up. Your pattern piece will be right side up. Okay, for C, that is our credit card panel. Now this is the very long strip. You'll have to put 3 pieces together in your pattern to make this long strip. This will not be the credit card slots you'll see at the end of my bag, but I wanted to show you this piece because it's easier to see on. My credit card slots I actually did out of waterproof canvas, and it's a little trickier to see your right side from your wrong side, so I wanted to have this so you could see easier my markings on it. We only need 1 of these, and you do not need to have a mirrored piece of this. When you cut your interfacing, make sure that your interfacing is mirrored so that it can fit on there properly. Okay, that is D. Now we're going to move on over to our back pocket, which is E. We need a back pocket, and then we need the lining to be mirrored. When you're cutting out your back pocket, go ahead and orientate it on your panel piece A, just to make sure you're doing it accurately. If you're using a back pocket panel that's going to be directional, make sure you double check that too. This is the steps that get a little confusing. And that's all you need for your back, is your back pocket, your lining, and your main. We will put a stabilizer on this, but that will be later. Do not attach your stabilizer, which is your fusible fleece, until later. The only other step or piece that we need to cut out will be, let me find it here, get this out of the way, will be F, our front pocket. We need to cut out 2 front pocket pieces. They are going to be what will make our zipper pocket lining. We need to have these mirrored. We also need to make sure that if we're using directional fabric that it's going in the right direction. You can see mine is sideways. It's just because I ran out of fabric. So there is that. We also have stabilizer. That is G. You do not attach that right now. We attach that later. The pattern calls for a fusible fleece. I'm actually using a like a Decaville Light for mine, just because I don't have any fusible fleece here. That is the pieces we're cutting. Now we're going to push these to the side. We're going to go back over to our page 3 cut list, and we're going to look at our additional cuts. These are pieces that we don't have pattern pieces for, but we still need to cut out. She has the dimensions listed right here. I just wadded them out for her protection. But let's go ahead and look at each of these. And then that will be all for our beginning prep work. And we'll move on to our next step. Okay. D-ring connectors. We need 2 of these. I chose to use 1-inch webbing, and I cut it out to the length she says in the pattern. I also went ahead and attached a 1-inch D-ring and put a rivet in place and basted at the bottom. You do not have to use a rivet. You could sew here if you wanted to, or you don't have to do that at all. You will need 2 of these. We will set these aside for later. You will need 2 zippers cut to the measurements that she has put in the pattern. You will also need 2 zipper pulls. Go ahead and attach your pulls if you don't already have them attached. The smaller zipper is going to be your front pocket zipper. It does not need any zipper tabs. So go ahead and put this one aside. We don't need to do anything else with it. It's ready as it is right now. For our top zipper, this will be the longer length zipper. We will attach 2 zipper tabs. She gives us the measurements, and the way we prep our zipper tabs is we simply fold it in half, lengthwise, and then we open it up and fold our raw ends in to meet that middle crease line, and then we fold it down again. This just creates a piece of double fold bias tape. We simply insert the end of our zipper onto that. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do off camera is I'm just going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away, and then I'll trim up my zipper tabs so that they are flush with my zipper. Okay, after I do that, it'll look just like this. You can see top stitching, and I trim my edges. After we do this, the zipper will be ready for installation later in the video. Okay, set that aside. So now we're going to go over the strap. The way we're going to make this adjustable strap is I'm using 1-inch nylon webbing. You can use a lighter to melt the ends to help prevent fraying. I'm going to use 1-inch slider and 2 1-inch swivel hooks. The first thing I do is I slide my 1-inch slider on the webbing, just right there at the top. Then I fold the webbing down on itself. Off camera, I'm going to rivet this in place, or you can sew across there just to secure that. I'm just going to use a clip right now to secure it for the purpose of this video, and then I'll rivet it off camera. Okay. The next thing I do is I slide on my 1-inch swivel hook on the opposite free end. I want to show you what it looks like, just so you can see that. Oh, that came undone. Hold on just a second. Let me clip that again. So this is the front of my swivel, my 1-inch slider, and this is the front of my swivel hook. You can see from the back, both wrong ends. Okay, so then I'm going to take the other end, and I'll make sure I don't twist this up. And then I'm going to just slide it on there. And slide it through both sides. You can see that. Pull it down. And I did twist it, of course. Let me fix that. Get myself orientated again. So now I have it in place. The adjustable slider works. My swivel hook's at one end. Only thing I have left to do is add on my other swivel hook to the free end, clip it down, and I'll drop my clip. And then let me make this small so you can see both sides and how it looks. So a swivel hook on each end, the strap slider in the middle, and that is the completed strap. Okay, we're going to set this aside, and we're going to move directly in to start sewing finally the bag. First thing we'll do is we're going to make our front pocket. Our front pocket is going to end up looking something like this. I'm making several of these bags, so you'll see me sewing this in different steps. So I will show you how to top stitch on this one, but first I'm going to show you how to get started. We have our main exterior panel piece A. We have one of our lining for the front zipper pocket. You can use your pattern pieces to draw your box, and then you'll also use your pattern piece to make sure you place this lining properly on your panel piece A. The next thing we're going to do is to simply sew on the 2 lines you drew from your pattern piece. Then we will cut it down the middle and push it through. Now while I'm sewing it, I'm going to try not to get my head in the way, but I may accidentally do that, so I do apologize if my head gets in front of the camera. I'm going to back stitch on all 4 ends of this zipper pocket opening. So there is the lines that I draw that I sewed on. I did not sew these short ends. This is just so I get a clean, crisp turn whenever I push this out on this box. Okay, so the next thing I do is I'm going to fold that, and then I'm just going to get started cutting and cut a line right down the middle. I'm not going to cut to the very end of those lines, but instead once I get close, just like any other zipper pocket you make, I'll make my little V. Now that you have that, what we're going to do is we're going to push our lining through this hole. And that is going to create this opening for our zipper. Now, I'm going to roll out the seams with my fingers, but then I'm going to take this over to the iron and press it. Once I do that, I will apply double-sided tape to both of the long edges of the zipper. Okay, and then I'm going to attach my zipper right in the middle of this box so that my teeth are exactly lined up like this, and I'm going to make sure that my zipper pull is closing to the left. After this, I'm going to top stitch all around this box. I will come back when I'm finished and show you how that looks, and then we'll go over our next step. Okay, now I've installed the zipper by top stitching around the zipper box and the zipper by 1/8 of an inch. So now that I have this, I flip it over, and then I just take my second front zipper pocket lining piece and clip it right sides together with the one we just attached. So when I have this clipped on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch all around this lining piece. I'm going to stitch at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and then I'm going to trim that down to 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. At the end, it's going to look exactly like this, and then that will complete our front zipper pocket, and we'll set this piece aside until we're ready for our final completion. Okay, now that that is finished, we're going to move on to working on the back slip pocket. Now, when we're working with our back slip pocket, the first thing we'll do is take the exterior pocket piece and the lining pocket piece, and we're going to make sure that we clip them at the top and sew them at the top. We're going to sew around that top at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we'll flip it right sides together, and then we'll top stitch that same seam, and then we're going to baste it onto our back exterior piece. So let's get that going. So now that I have that basted on or sewn on at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, the pattern tells us one of the tricks to get that perfect sharp corner when we're sewing this pattern is to cut a V right here. Now what we'll do is we will get as close to our stitches as possible without cutting our stitches. So if you're uncomfortable, let me just draw that on so you can kind of see what I'm going to do. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but we're going to do something like that to get as close in there so when we flip it, we'll get a very sharp corner there. Now, my slip pocket is attached. I'm going to have to trim my bottom just a little bit because it came over just a little bit. That was a cutting error there. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach a magnetic snap. If you have like the prong magnetic snaps, you will need to, or you will want to do that before this step. But since I'm using my K.Azcona press, I do it after I have it all sewn because I actually want to go through every layer. So what I do is I just use my hole punch here, and I make my hole. I have my snaps right here. So they're pretty simple. And now I will just take this over to my press and actually secure those by pressing them down. But that is my back pocket with my snaps attached. And now this part is done and ready for us for our final completion when we're at that step. So I'm going to set this aside and then we'll move on to our next step. So now we're on to making the credit card slots for this hip bag. The first thing I want to do is I want to show you a little bit of how I make my markings on my pattern piece. The first thing I do is I cut notches on all the lines. This would be another line, but I have it removed so we can't see all the pattern piece. But I cut notches on the pattern pieces itself. Then I take this pattern piece and I line it up directly the way it's supposed to go onto the pattern, and then I'll draw the lines and cut them out there. When I say I cut them out, I'll explain that. The first thing I do is on the back side, I make the lines by drawing the full line across the back. But on the front of the pattern where I don't want to draw the line across, and where my fabric is a little bit darker and harder to see, I cut out small notches. I don't know if you can see that. But I do that to kind of help be a guide for me as to where to fold these wallet pieces and things like that. So let me show you how we fold the wallet pieces now. Okay. Dropped my piece there. Okay, the first thing we do is I mark the top, and I have a mark that on the back, all these lines are going to be folded right sides together. So I turn my piece around, and I'm using just a piece of plastic cutting board, and I am going to put that cutting board right up against where that line is to hold its place. Okay, I'm going to press down right there. I'm going to make sure that my sides are even. Now, I typically will hit this with an iron to really get it set into place, but I'm not going to use the iron here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how I would fold this, and then I'll show you how it would look if we ironed each piece. So then I'm going to lift this up. I'm still staying on that, folding all these down right sides together. I'm doing this step first. There's my next one. And just continuing on down until I get to the last one. And this is my last one. Now I'm going to flip this over and do the same thing with my notches, folding it. Instead of folding it right sides together, I'm going to fold it the wrong sides together. Again, making sure those sides are nice and even. And down to my last one. And I'm going to show you what it looks like if you crease it really nicely instead of just finger pressing it. It looks like this. So the same thing as mine, it's just creased a little bit better. So once you have all those, you know, the hills and the valleys, what we do is we just accordion fold them all together. Okay, so this is your credit card slots. The next thing we do is we just baste down our sides. No, sorry, the wrong side. Baste down our sides. Now this is what you'll actually see in my bag, the waterproof canvas. I'll use the other ones I made in other bags I'm making. So this is what you'll see in the finished bag. So now that I have my sides basted, the next thing I do is I pull out my two pieces here, left and right. Now the way she has these cut, they are going to line up perfectly with your credit card slots. So I want to show you, after you clip these on, before you sew it, I want to show you the bottom here. You can see how there's that gap there. That's because we're going to sew this at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and that is going to be exactly where you're going to start. It's going to line up perfectly. Okay? So we're going to sew these on 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we're going to back stitch at both sides. Then we're going to open it up. We're going to leave that seam against our lining panel here, and then we're going to top stitch down there, and that is going to complete our credit card slots. Once we are done, it's going to look just like this. So you can see I top stitched down here. Also, I did top stitch the tops of each of these peaks. So back here at this point, you can top stitch each one of these if you want. You don't have to, but it just gives it a more like professional look if you do that. Okay, and let me show you the back. You can see that I do have the lining up against the seam allowance there. So this is your lining panel. Your other lining panel is just plain. We're not putting anything on that. So now at this point, both of our lining panels, both of our main exterior panels are completed, and we're ready to do the final put together of this bag and finish this bag. Okay, so I'm going to point out in the beginning of this video, I had the fabric stacked in this way, and I had my lining with my back panel and my credit card slots with my front panel. Everything was cut out properly. I just had them in the wrong stacks, because now when we're sewing them, you'll see that I need to switch that up. So I just wanted to point that out so there was no confusion there. Sorry if it did cause confusion. Okay, now we have everything prepped, and I want to point out that if you want to add stabilizer to the backs of your lining panels, you'll do so now. The pattern calls for fusible fleece, but I didn't use a fusible fleece. One thing, I already had quite a bit of bulk in my bag, and I didn't want it too bulky, and plus I just didn't have any here. So I used Pixie Fuse Premium is what I used on that. If you have any question about that, you can let me know, but you can use fleece or whatever depending on the structure you want. So now that we have that, this is what we should have. We should have 4 pieces left, and our zipper panel, and our 2 D-rings, and our strap. So what we're going to do first is we're going to work on our zipper. So I'm going to start with the front part here. So the front with the zipper pocket, and I'm going to get my zipper and put it so where the pull is closing to the left. Now, on my exterior, I made 2 marks. These are 5/8 of an inch in from the sides, and then I applied 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape along the top. I did this in actually 2 pieces, so it'll be easier. And I'm going to use this double-sided tape kind of like a basting stitch for my zipper to hold it in place. If you don't have double-sided tape, it's okay. You don't have to use it, but it does help where this is a pretty steep point right here to keep that zipper secured. What I want to see happen is I want to have my zipper start right here, go all along here, and then end right here. We want to keep those zipper tabs in our zipper outside of our seam when we sew up this bag, so that way we have a nice clean finish at the end. So let's go ahead and remove the tape, and I'm going to attach my zipper. Okay, got that attached. Mine fit perfectly. And so now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and sew this on with the full seam allowance. Oh, and just so you know, it is right sides together. So right side down. I'm going to sew this with the full seam allowance, which is 3/8 of an inch. Pretty much you're going to be riding right up against the teeth as close as you can against that. Okay, now that I got that attached, I'm just going to put my lining on top and match it up and then sew it from end to end with that same 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now that we have that sewed on, I'm going to cut a V right here to help this turn easily and make a nice smooth point there. You don't want to cut into your stitches, just cut right up against them. Flip it out. Straighten everything up, and then let's do a top stitch on the top of this. We're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away all along this curve here, and then we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. So now we're on to the last couple steps of the bag. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we separate the exterior from the lining, and we're going to baste and place the D-ring connectors. So the pattern gives us the measurements, but it's 3/4 of an inch down, I believe, and 1 inch in is the way we place these connectors, and we're just going to baste them across there. We're going to leave a little bit of overhang. We're not going to trim that whenever we're doing our final trim, just so we have some extra support and security there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my zipper halfway. I don't like to open it all the way because then when I'm sewing around the sides, there's a chance that the pull can get caught inside there, so I don't want to do that. So just halfway. And then I'm going to clip my exteriors and my linings to get right sides together. I'm going to push this zipper towards the lining. And then I'm just going to match up my seams, clip them, and then sew around all the clipped edges. When I get to the lining, I'm going to increase my seam allowance. So I'm going to sew my exterior with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then I'm going to grade my seam and kind of come in to about 1/2 of an inch. And then whenever I want to sew around the bottom and then leave my opening to turn, and then come back, and then whenever I come back up, I'm going to go back to 3/8 of an inch again. But make sure you leave your bottom for turning. Okay, we've got it sewn around. Quick side note, do not trim these, and watch your hardware. Both times mine kept wanting to turn down and get in the way. But now we're just going to reach in, turn our back inside out, poke out our corners, and then close up the lining, and then we're done. Okay, now I'll probably give my bag a quick press, but really, that's it. I'll attach my handles from my strap, and the bag is finished. I love the shape of it. It's so unique. I love the pocket on the back, and don't forget, there's also the mini. So if you like this pattern, make sure you try it out. You know, buy the pattern. The link is in my description, and also join the Facebook group and see all the other designs Kim has made. And thank you so much for watching.